The depths in Deepwoken, a place acting as purgatory for drowned souls, which pulls people deeper and deeper within its grasp. Before getting into the specifics of the depths, it's important to know how it works. I'm also live on Twitch after uploading this video, so come check me out there. In comparison to the overworld, the depths is technically physically attached to the overworld. Like, it is a physical place existing in reality, not an alternate dimension like some people think it is. Imagine the overworld is a flat earth. The depths surrounds the world around you. This map is a pretty rough explanation drawn up by Archmage, but essentially if you go too far physically in any direction, you will eventually get past the Void Sea and end up drowned, reaching the depths. The heavens listed on this map only exist in the upward direction, however, as the Celestials come from the heavenly kingdom of the star, but going past that heaven then reaches back into the depths. It's kind of like a 5-dimensional lasagna, and the layers and the outer layers are always the depths. The world's basically just a small bubble, which is surrounded at all sides by the depths. With enough analogies done, let's actually talk about some of it. Within every layer of the depths is some sort of divine or godly being, with each layer having its own unique drowned god or avatar for one, or both. As for going to the depths, there are 3 ways, 2 of which being in-game. The first way is by dying. Dying in-game allows an unnamed force of the song to pull your soul down into the depths. The stronger your soul, the heavier it is, causing it to sink further and further into the layers of the depths when you die. Soul strength is more so about willpower and character than actual strength or power, which is why people like Kenneth can be seen as far as layer 2. The second way is through a whirlpool, a physically manifesting gateway to the depths which will only allow you to reach the first layer of the depths regardless of the strength of your soul. However, you don't have to die, so it's a lot less painful. And the final route is by physically moving outside of the main luminance and through the Void Sea. The Void Fog is capable of swallowing ships whole, and I assume this just means that if you were to go too far into the Void Sea, you'd eventually just pass out and wake up in the depths with no boat. This is also possible by just venturing deep enough in caves and caverns, which was stated at some point, or just like swimming too far down in the ocean. This isn't actually in the game, however. One thing interesting about the depths is that once you've reached it, your soul is essentially always being pulled towards it. Imagine a person who's never been to the depths. Their soul is aligned with their body and they remain normal. However, once going to the depths, your soul is now constantly being dragged down by the universe, which is why you can enter but not exit the depths via physical means. You can dig or swim far enough into the sea to reach the depths, but if you try and leave it physically through the same way you came, then your soul gets pulled harder and harder down until it's eventually ripped from your body entirely and you're killed, landing you in the reflections of self, which I'll cover more later. Technically, the depths has infinite layers, but as you fall deeper, they weigh more on your soul until it's ripped apart, killing you. We also only know like 4 layers at most, with only 3 of them even having like confirmed major details. Now that you understand the depths, let's go over its main layers. Layer 1 of the depths is known as Schizophia. Every depths layer has its own special theming and properties, with layer 1 of the depths being based on the deep sea, being a seemingly underwater world with various sea creatures and water physics. The first layer of the depths isn't really water though. The depths technically aren't grounded by the same laws of physics that reality normally is, so lots of conflicting physical events and stuff like that can happen. The depths does have some properties similar to water, but you're capable of breathing in it and they don't physically affect the weight of objects, just the gravity involving people, which I know is kind of a conflicting statement because weight is determined by gravity, but it's not supposed to make sense. It is purposely not grounded in reality, which is the entire point. So yeah, things aren't heavier or lighter, but the gravity affecting them is technically lighter. It's weird to explain. Not that it matters in trying to explain, because it's purposely nonsensical. The drowned god associated with the first layer is Yun Shul, who is the god of either souls or resonances, something along those lines, but it's never completely stated. Yun Shul and most other drowned gods are technically sleeping, but are also the reasons for a lot of things that happen within their depths layers. Monster spawns, for example, only exist due to Yun Shul's chaotic presence giving birth to various hostile beings. When in the depths first layer, you also go slowly insane, which is simply for being within the first layer of the depths. The entire concept of it not being in reality causes existentialism in sentient beings who go there unwillingly, which is what causes you to go insane. It's not Yun Shul's presence causing insanity like many people think it is, it's actually just being in the depths and how it doesn't make sense weighs down on your mind. Yun Shul is also inspired by the gods of of H.P. Lovecraft, and so are most drowned gods, but they're significantly weaker than actual Lovecraftian gods. However, it is stated that if Yunshul or pretty much any of the other drowned gods woke up, then basically everyone would die and your eyes would pop out of your head and stuff. Pretty gross. Anyway, about the actual Depths First Lair. The Depths First Lair contains the drowned city of Lost Seltor. Seltor was once a city in the overworld in the golden era of the Song and the Cataclysm. Seltor is also the city the Shadowcast attunement was invented in, but this was before the city was drowned into the depths. Shadowcast does have its own unique lore, but I won't be going over that here unless you guys want me to go over like attunement lore or something. I guess comment down below if you want that. As for Seltor, it was drowned during the Great Tides, or well actually after them, because of various rituals done by the Ministry of Minatirsa. They also plan to do the same to Etris, which is why they sealed away the king and replaced him with the current Lord Regent temporarily. That's irrelevant to the depths though. Anyway, Schizophia is mainly handled by two factions, the Divers and the Ignition Union, who are strictly rivals and the two dominating groups within basically every depths layer that's inhabited except for 3, which we'll get into later. Now both groups are actually allied with the central authority, but it doesn't seem that like they're completely neutral or even passive with them, because we see Akira kill central authority members. It just seems like they work with them when needed and aren't hostile to anyone that benefits their goals. The Divers' main goal is the exploration and studying of various drowned gods, the depths, and basically everything that isn't in the overworld. Their number one goal is obtaining knowledge, and that's why they focus on, despite having combat troop capable of carrying dangerous expeditions, which they only do for the gathering of research. They do this so that way they can understand the depths better, so that way they can stop the overworld expansion of the Void Sea and depths to protect the normal people above. Despite being rivals, the Ignition Union and the Divers both work contractually for the Central Authority, but they're not particularly friendly with them outside of that contract work, and they're not particularly friendly with each other, despite the fact that they don't even have the same goals. The Ignition Union does have a completely different goal from the Divers as far as depths exploration. Their main goal is quite literally to just kill everything that they can. Their personal goals are really just the manufacturing of weapons and technology. The high ranks of each group are the Black Divers of the Divers and the Ignition Deep Delvers of the Ignition Union. The Ignition Deep Delver rank is decided by attribution and what you've done to further advance the Ignition Union, whereas the Black Divers are purely given their rank based on strength and power, which is ironic considering the goals of each group would imply the opposite, since the Ignition Union is just down there to kill and harvest, while the Divers are actually studying. The rest of the depths doesn't really have too much important lore, but we do know the Ferryman is somewhere down there within the first layer. It's likely he just lives far away on his own while projecting himself up to people at Bowman's Watch for his own entertainment. Now for Layer 2, the Eternal Gale. Layer 2 goes back to generally normal physics and gravity, however unlike Layer 1 it is much more desolate, initially being a mostly snow-filled wasteland, where the only thing down there are the secondary Ignition Union bases, a few Kirsten camps, and then Chaser's Tower. The snow, however, isn't actually snow. In Layer 2 it's a weird sticky leech-like parasitic organism which feeds on people it falls onto until it eventually rapidly kills the host. They are highly dangerous parasites, killing hosts in minutes or even seconds if the host is swarmed by them, which is caused by stepping into those weird sand-looking pits in Layer 2. Does anyone know what those are supposed to be? Because I still don't know. If you know, leave it in the comments below. I couldn't find any real answers on it either. The main attraction of Layer 2 though is Chaser's Tower. The tower where Chaser, a former Black Diver, lives within the depths. However, he is not a Black Diver anymore because he was actually a Ministry operative who was just invading their ranks or whatever. Layer 2's secondary attractions are the various Ignition Union bases, with the main one being the Frontier's Furnace where the Deep Drill is held. The Deep Drill is a very advanced piece of technology capable of physically breaking through layers of the depths without ripping your soul apart. This is also accessible to reach Layer 2 if you have the Ignition Unit origin, but the main method of entering Layer 2 is by going through the Divers and Claris, since this gives you the option of a light hook, preventing death for about 20 minutes. You can also jump into the void of Layer 1 if you're above 3/4 health to go there, but you know that's dangerous because you don't get your free get out of jail free card. Anyway, about Chaser. Chaser is a former Black Diver and servant of the Ministry's second prophet who taught him to wield Bloodrend-based magic, which is, you know, the blood attunement, which uses the user's blood within their body for various purposes, from attacking to utility and healing to potentially surgery and transfusions, as we can see through the Bloodrend obtainment quest. Regardless, Chaser left the Divers as the third strongest Black Diver, killing his expedition group while trying to reach New Kirsa after he formed an alliance with various friendly Kirse guards. It is also implied he plans to reach Etheron to strike some sort of deal with the god, or even waking him up just to destroy the world, potentially becoming the Deepwoken of Galebreath if that is his goal. A Deepwoken being a mortal who ascends near godhood by taking in part or power of a drowned god. They also become immortal when they do this, but only semi-immortal, as they aren't completely indestructible or unkillable, but by any mortal means, they are unkillable. One interesting part of Layer 2 is that drowned god Etherin, who sleeps similarly to Yunshul. except his powers are over Gale Breath as an attunement, while Yunshul's powers aren't entirely known. Due to the proximity of Layer 2 to Etheron, it's stuck in a strange space and time loop of dilated slowdown effects, where every event that happens eventually resets and is also like super slow and happening all at the same time. It's kind of hard to explain. Imagine there are 2 timelines for every event playing at the exact same time in the exact same universe just in the world, right? One of these keeps on going extremely slow, and then the other one is going at normal speed but resets, so that way they both eventually end at the same time. So I guess like one is an event infinitely repeating, and then the other is an event that's infinitely happening because the time keeps slowing down around it. It is really weird. But this does mean that every time you kill Chaser, it resets and he doesn't remember any experience of it. For some unknown reason, the player is immune to these space and time dilating effects though, but it's unexplained. But it also means that simultaneously, while Chaser is unaware of it, it will eventually catch up with him in like a trillion years, and he'll experience like a quadrillion deaths at once, and it's gonna suck for him. It's gonna be like Gold Experience Requiem, just kind of like throws him in the infinite death loop for all of eternity. The second part of Layer 2 is New Kirsa, where the Kirsan people come from, which is very interesting because this means that humans and aspected humans in the overworld aren't the only forms of intelligent life, with new and intelligent life being capable of evolving even within various depth layers. Regardless, the Scion of Etheron, or Avatar, which acts while Etheron is sleeping, has likely got most of the Kirsan people under mind control, which is why they attack the player on sight down here, but not all of them are affected. The Kirsan people do work hard to keep Etheron asleep. However, the mist, which it secretes to control minds, essentially gives people a strong and irresistible compulsion to help awaken Etheron, such as the Lost Divers, who appear down there and attack the player. The main boss within Layer 2 is the Scion of Etheron. After beating him, the city begins to crumble and break down on top of you, with you needing to reach Claris's light hook in order to escape the city before you are crushed. Afterwards, it is then reset by the weird timey-wimey effects. However, as the player is immune to them, you'd likely die from the city being crushed, and if you didn't, the violent reset of time would rip your soul out of your body, and regardless, you need to get out of there or you will die. It is quite interesting though, because the implications that Etheron is subconsciously and unconsciously secreting some sort of hormone or gas that makes people want to wake it up also implies that Etheron wants to be awakened for whatever reason. I just couldn't tell you why. Next up is Layer 3, also known as the Carnal Vents. It is the last layer we have significant information on, but not the last I'll be covering. Layer 3 is the Flame Charm layer of the depths, essentially. The drowned god of Layer 3 is the Coral Fiend, which is said to basically be a big-ass lava serpent, kind of like the one from Rogue Lineage, but bigger, smarter, and, like, godly and stuff. Anyway, Layer 3 is pretty much entirely flames, and it's the first inhabited depths layers without the Ignition Union or pretty much any diver stake in it. Layer 3 is entirely composed of 2 beings, one person and one god. The person being Amoris Pleatsky and the god being Coral Fiend, who is sleeping. Now, Amoris Pleatsky is a black diver like Chaser, but he isn't evil and is more of the scholarly sort despite being mostly independent, which he joined the divers after he became a Deepwoken, which is important. Now, he somehow and unexplainably managed to be the only person to ever make it to Layer 3, where he ate a lava flower, a piece of the Coral Fiend, and then gained the ability to speak with flames and command them on a different level to that the attunement users couldn't, making Pleatsky one of the 2 confirmed ascended Deepwoken in the game, while also becoming immortal, as any Deepwoken is basically a demigod. Now, this is interesting because it means that once he was able to command the flames of Layer 3, he pretty much has complete mastery over the entire zone of Layer 3, giving him the ability to just leave and enter freely. So he was able to go back up to the overworld and teach people Flame Charm, join the divers, do all of that, right? Now, Aban becoming the de facto ruler of Layer 3, since he's the only awake sentient being there, he then brought the new arts of Flame Charm to the people above, teaching people to wield the flames to a lesser degree than he could, but better than they could before. He also then got his own, fan club, being the entire Flame Worshipper group, dedicated to worshipping him, including wearing a replica of his armor. The Flame Worshipper armor in-game is a replica of the armor that Pleatsky wears and first wore when he ventured to Layer 3 to protect him from the flames below. As for Pleatsky, he is also the second strongest person in the game, being basically immortal but not deathless. Of course, a drowned god could kill him, but no mortal or immortal person could. Pleatsky also had a weird amount of innate knowledge bestowed upon him upon becoming a Deepwoken, so he has changed significantly as a person since he was originally sent down to Layer 3. He is a pretty chill guy though, according to Archmage, and I like to imagine he's just down there smoking on that lava flower and seeing visions in the flames. The final layer we have any sort of information about is actually unknown. It's the layer that the first prophet of the ministry lies in, and it's probably anywhere from layers 5 through 11, but we don't know anything about the layer that the first prophet is in. We kind of just know that his whereabouts are unknown, and he's probably in the depths, and we know that he's in there all alone, and that he is the single strongest person in Deepwoken lore, and might not even be a person anymore. He's likely also the main prophet behind the drowning of Lost Selter, but not much is known about him. It was stated by Archmage that if he and Pleatsky ever fought, it would be a very long, drawn-out battle, with the first prophet eventually coming out on top. He also potentially could not be human anymore, as it's hinted at him losing his humanity wherever he's at, to the point where he could just be a big monster. Although if Pleatsky and Maestro Evangard both fought the first prophet, they would win, as Maestro is stated to be on par with Pleatsky with his Tempest Eye ability active. Not sure how that scaling works, but it's whatever. Anyway, those are all of the currently known depths layers and any lore involving them. The additive to these layers is the Fragments of Self, because it is physically existing within layer 1 of the depths, but for those of you who are interested, it's not real. The Fragments of Self, as the name implies, are actually just your broken mind after your soul is ripped apart when you die. The fragments in question being pieces of your soul, and the self being yourself. It's literally just pieces of your mind that you're piecing together before reincarnation. As a whole, the depths just have so much underutilized lore that I really hope make it into the game. Like really, this game has some good lore, but most of it's kind of just underdeveloped, both in-game, and even the lore itself, which is mostly unfinished. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe. Shout out to YouTube members Pickle, Green, Brick, Goobka, Highcard, and Drizzy Drake Fan. Watch my live channel. I love you all. Have an amazing day, and goodbye.